So this is the second lecture in the leadership. Let's go through the notes. So 2.4 is about systematic leadership. Okay. So what is the systematic leadership? Basically, in the 1980s, a leadership underwent a paradigm shift, largely driven by the work of Nicholas Luhmann. Okay. So this changed the prevailing opinion from an input-output related mechanic and monocasual view of leadership to a system perspective. So in 1980s, there was a paradigm shift and shift to the systematic perspective. The core idea of systematic leadership is that leadership action, the core idea of leadership is that the leadership action in complex network social structure lead to a multitude of direct and indirect reactions. The core idea of systematic leadership is that leadership action in a complex networked social structure lead to a multitude of direct and indirect reactions. In general, system theory describes regularities. In general, system theories describe regularities. Right? In general, system theory describe regularities. What the system theory describes? Regularities, according to which new self-organized structures and effective reaction can arise in complex system. In general, system theory describes regularities according to which new self-organized structures and effective reactions can arise in complex system. Self-organization can be understood as the adaptation of a system. Self-organization. What is self-organization? It can be understood as the adaptation of a system. In the presence of new input. There is new input and we adopt a system. So that is self-organization. For example, self-organization would occur in a company system. Self-organization. When the competitive situation input changes. Self-organization. For example, if a direct competitor lowers prices, the product management team, finance department and sales division will coordinate whether a lower price can be accepted on a temporary basis or whether more economic product variants can be produced at a short notice, which offer fewer features but can be sold at a lower price. Here, what is the new input? That is the competitor lowers the price. Competitor lowers the price is the new input, right? So when there is a new input, see, when the computer's input changes, right? When there is a new input, what happens? Self-organization occurs, right? So there is change in competitor price and we have organized, we have took meeting, right? Which departments sat together? Product management team, finance department and sales division. And they will coordinate and they will decide whether a lower price can be expected or more economical product can be produced quickly. In this respect, systematic leadership does not attempt to reduce complexity. Systematic leadership does not attempt to reduce complexity. In this respect, systematic leadership does not attempt to reduce complexity. So it doesn't attempt only to reduce, does not attempt to reduce complexity, rather it attempts to influence it. So what does it do? It attempts to influence it by means of communication as a necessary component. By means of communication as a necessary component of the system. So communication is a necessary component. It is the task of a leader to understand complex and bilateral interactions. So what is the task of the leader? To understand. So he understands. To understand is the task of the leader. What he has to understand? The complex and bilateral interactions between all participants. For example, employees, customers, suppliers, etc. Okay, employees, customers, suppliers. So, ultimately, a leader only has the task of acting as an initiator. So, leader's task is only the acting as initiator, only acting as initiator. So, the problem of leadership using the systematic view lies in the fact that leadership himself is subject in the system, right? And therefore dependent on various uncontrollable and self-regulating influences. So what is systematic leadership? Systematic leadership is a term, and when leadership behavior symbolizes the values and beliefs of a company. Symbol leadership is a term used when it is used when leadership behavior symbolizes the values and beliefs of a company. A symbol is understood to be a representation of a something that cannot be tangibly perceived. Symbol cannot be tangibly perceived. In the sense of symbolic leadership, in the sense of symbolic leadership, it is not only what happens objectively in a company that is important, but also how this event is perceived by the leader and their employee is important. So in the sense of symbolic leadership, it is not only what happens objectively in a company that is important, but also how this event is perceived by the leadership and their employees is important. So many things that occur in a company, be it a written or a proposal announcement, many things that occur in a company, so be it a written or a personal announcement, written announcement or a personal announcement of a new strategy, an unwritten dress code, right? Unwritten dress code, or the fact that the management is located on the top floor of the building also have a symbolic character. So it has some symbolic character and thus indirectly says something about a company. So it says something about it. It's on the top floor. It says that the company is, can afford the, top rise charges of the society. So, for example, a conservative dress code may represent conservative values. It may represent conservative values at a company, and the removal of a timekeeping system. So, removal of a timekeeping system without replacement may represent a company's trust in the employees, right? According to what? Symbolic leadership we are studying. So according to Nerdinger, the leadership style, the leadership behavior is always symbolic. So leadership behavior is always symbolic, since led people will always interpret the behavior of the leaders. So led people will always interpret the behavior of the people. Behavior of the people. Right? Not people, behavior of the leaders. An open door to a supervisor's office can signal responsiveness and by implication be interpreted
by employees as their supervisors, appreciation of the importance of their issues. Open door. If they have some issues, they can directly go. So this symbol, this is a symbol. Okay, what it is interpreted, how it is interpreted? It is interpreted that the employees' issues are given importance. So, however, recommendation regarding symbols in leadership. However, recommendation regarding symbols in leadership should be treated with caution, since forced symbolism is quickly perceived inauthentic. Right? Forced symbolism is quickly perceived as inauthentic. You have to also take this thing in mind. Forced symbolism is quickly perceived inauthentic. If a company has spent years following a formal conservative dress code with a strict hierarchy and an exception that employees are not on a first name basis, with each other, it may seem inauthentic, or overnight the dress code become moral cause and employees are expected to use the first names with each other. Right? If you do something like that overnight, then it may seem or look unauthentic. Right? So that is what the sentence is trying to say or convey the message. So moreover, the same leadership action can be interpreted differently by different employees. Right? Same leadership action. For example, if the leader frequently and thoroughly checks the work results of the employees, this can be interpreted by one employee involved, the leader being as conscious, he is careful. When an employee interprets that he is conscious, interested and supportive, but can alternatively be perceived as them being controlling or mistrusting. They can also be perceived as being controlling or mistrusting. So the theory of symbolic leadership still has not been subjected to sufficient research, rather empirical research. Regardless, its merit lies in broadening narrow of view of leadership as a process that involves all participants and convey meaning to them. Transactional and transformational leadership. So transactional and transformational leadership. The concept of transformational leadership has had a lasting influence on international leadership research. So the concept of transformational leadership has had a lasting influence on international leadership research over the past 30 years. This transformational leadership is very old. This approach is becoming more widespread in the practice of leadership development. Transformational leadership builds on transactional leadership. It builds on transactional leadership, complementing and extending it. But placing focus on the leader's function as a role model. Where it focuses on the leader's function. It takes leader's function as a role model and it focuses on it. So, Mr. Bernard M. Bass was the first author to distinguish between transactional and transformational approaches. What is the transactional leadership? Transactional leadership is based on the principle of reinforcement and is often described in management jargon as carrot and stick leadership. So, transactional leadership equal to carrot and stick approach, characteristic approach. You know, na, characteristics. A stick is tied in the neck of the donkey, and the carrot is also a stick on the point of that sticks. So if the donkey walks and he thinks that I'll reach that carrot and I'll eat it, but he never reaches. So it means you work hard and some kind of motivations will be given to you, right? So transactional leadership is based on the principle of reinforcement and is often described in management jargon as characteristic leadership. Positive work results are rewarded, right? Positive work results are rewarded. So the table below provides an overview of the different types of conditioned reinforcement. So apply a stimulus, remove a stimulus. Positive reinforcement, for example, praise, bonus payment, and negative stimulus are reinforcement are cancellation of an employee discount, punishment, extinction. Extinction is removing stimulus. Punishment, demotion or warning is also stimulus. So in a transactional leadership, the leader controls both the way in which tasks are completed and the achievement of goals by employee. In transactional leadership, the leader controls both the way in which tasks are completed and the achievement of goal by the employees. So the concept of transactional leadership corresponds with the idea of management by exception. So we have seen transactional leadership as characteristics. Now we see the concept of transactional leadership corresponds with the idea of management by. So transactional leadership. First we have seen as characteristic approach. Now we are seeing transactional leadership as management by exception, right? Management by exception. There is a possibility of ignoring negative exceptions. In addition, so there is always a possibility of ignoring negative exceptions, but this contradicts the idea of management by exception. So we have seen the transactional leadership. Now let's see the transformational leadership. Transformational leadership. So transformational leadership focuses on different leadership principles. So what are those principles? We'll see. Then transactional leadership. So transactional leadership doesn't focus on different leadership principles, but transformational leadership focuses on different leadership principles. Whereas transactional leadership focuses on the transaction. So transactional leadership focuses on transaction, and the transactional leadership also focuses on the leader is responsible for achieving and monitoring goals. There in the transactional leadership, leader is responsible for achieving and monitoring goals. So transformational leaders motivate their employees. So transformational leaders motivate their employees by influencing their values and feelings. On 4 levels, right? Transformational leaders motivate their employees by influencing their values and feelings on 4 levels by doing the following: convincingly communicating attractive visions, credibility, embodying a role model, stimulating independent thinking and supporting change, supporting employee development, right? So it does the 1, 2, 3, 4. What it does, it communicate attractive visions, embody role model, influence, idealize, right? Stimulate independent thinking. It supports changes, and it also supports employee development. So transactional leadership focuses on the transaction and the leader is responsible for achievement and monitoring goals. But transformational leaders motivates their employees by influencing their values and feelings on 4 levels. They influence their values and feelings at 4 levels. So basically these 4 are the levels. So these are the levels, right? Okay. The transactional leadership is the supplemented, but there is certainly no room for the development of a transformational leadership. So transactional leadership is the supplemented, transactional leadership, supplemented, but there is certainly no room for the development of transformational leadership. If performance and consideration do not exist, in a relationship of their fair exchange. So what this sentence says, transactional leadership is the supplemented, but there is certainly no room for the development of transformational leadership. There is no room for development of transformational leadership if this condition is not satisfied, there is room for. Otherwise, if this is satisfied, then there is no room, right? Transactional leadership is the supplemented. It is supplemented, no doubt, but there is clearly no room for the development of transformational leadership. Transformational leadership cannot develop itself if performance and consideration do not exist in a relationship of fair exchange. If performance and consideration. So you are performing well, you are working 10 hours and you don't get the what? Fair exchange of what? Consideration. So you are not getting any consideration for your overtime. So will the transformational leadership work? Will the transformational leadership work? No. Transformational leadership will not work here. So this is saying that. But there is certainly no room for the development of transformational leadership. So transformational leadership will not develop or will not work if performance and consideration do not exist in a relationship of fair exchange. So जितना काम करोगे उतना पैसा. तो वो अगर नहीं रहेगा, if that is not there, then transformational leadership will not work. Okay. Thus, it is primarily a matter of trust and of conveying meaning to employees at work. Primarily what it is a matter of trust. So you trust your employees, if you work hard, you will be promoted or you will be having hike. Right? So thus, transformational leadership is primarily a matter of trust and conveying meaning to employees at work. So they convey a meaning. A large number of empirical studies have now shown that transformational leadership has a positive effect on various success. A large number of empirical studies have now shown that the transformational. So we are talking about transformational, right? Transformational leadership. Transformational leadership. Okay. So a large number of empirical studies have now shown that transformational leadership has a positive effect on various success factors such as individual commitment and on success of a company as an organization. So success of a company as an organization is utmost important. That is the goal of every organization. So transformational leadership has positive effect on that success of a company. Right? If you want the company to be success, you implement transformational leadership. Okay? Research has also shown that this correlation is particularly high in environment that is considered unstable. If any environment is considered unstable, so this research has also shown that this correlation, ये जो correlation है, so this correlation is particularly high. There is high correlation. So numerous meta-analyses on individual success variables show the positive effect of transformational leadership on job performance, commitment, work engagement, job satisfaction, and employee well-being, among other things. Furthermore, employees are less likely to quit if they are led according to transformational leadership principles. So, if they are led according to transformational leadership principle, there is low employee turnover. So, employee won't quit. That is the charisma, inspiration, intellectual stimulation, and individual appreciation. You appreciate individual if they do work hard. So, with regard to organizational success variables, empirical studies reveal the positive effects of transformational leadership on the development of a product and process innovations. So, in the area of innovation, product innovation, process innovation, transformational leadership shows a positive impact. The market launch of such innovations and company performance. So, company performance has also affected by the transformational leadership. If you have transformational leadership, company performance will increase. Various role behavior of a transactional or transformational leader. हमने देख लिया क्या क्या है, मतलब various roles क्या क्या है. Traits से transactional leadership and transformational leadership, how it works. So, coordination mechanism of leadership, contracts, rewards, punishments, that is in transactional leadership. Enthusiasm, cohesiveness, trust, or creativity is in transformational leadership. Right? Focus on employee motivation, external incentive, task in itself in case of transformational leadership. Focus on employee motivation is task in itself. It is not external incentive as like in transactional leadership. So in case of transactional leadership, focus on goal achievement is rather short term, whereas focus on goal achievement is long term. Right? Goal content, material goal, idealistic goal in case of transformational, but material goal in case of what? Transactional leadership. So role of the person leading, instructor in case of transactional leadership, teacher or coach in case of transformational leadership. So until 2.7 we have seen. Now 2.7 is about leadership theories. So what are those leadership theories? Through changing times. Leadership in a field of tension. Leadership in a field of tension. It has not been possible to identify a single correct leadership theory. So, it's not possible. Which is the correct leadership theory? Since the matter depends on too many contextual factors, such as the specific industry, the economic situation, culture, power distance, leader's personality, trust between a leader and their employees, and many others. Right? The leader's task can be understood as acting in a field of tension. He has to act in a field of tension. Leadership must ultimately be understood not only as a role, behavior, or leadership style choice, but also as striking balance of values within this field of tension. To understand what continuous values, reference can be made to the philosophy of Mr. Friedrich Nietzsche and his apostolic observation. So you can ignore if something you are finding difficult. So, values are perspective or points of view according to which people prefer or pursue things. So values we have seen in detail. Values, what is the meaning of, what does it signify? What is the meaning of value? Value are perspectives or points of view. Values are discovered or created, right? Value change because people change, right? If people change, then their value change. Value demands to be something that people ought to do, but unlike laws, they cannot be forced to comply with. Right? Value cannot be forced to comply with. You cannot say you have to comply with this value. Unlike laws can be complied. So, with regard to leadership, a distinction can then be made between managers and leaders on the basis of values. Right? Management and leaders on the basis of values. Management is understood as a profession that focuses on result and relies on measurable goals. Management relies on goals, while leaders use values to guide. So, leaders use value. Right? Management use goals. Management goal, leaders value, right? Management relies on goal, leader value, right? So much is lost if a company is exclusively reduced to measurable goal. So if it doesn't focus on value by hook and crook it earns profit, it is not good. It is something is lost here. The desirability of management, that works simply and strictly with quantitative goals is also questionable. You are focusing only on profit, that is questionable. Instead, goals need to be supplemented by values, right? Tata. Since goals in themselves are derived from values. So goals themselves are derived from values. For example, if sales growth goal of 15% as set, goal is set, we need to achieve 15% more sales. This goal is derived from the growth and expansion value. So what is our value? Our value is growth and expansion. So value gives employees indication of how to act in a new situation, not yet covered by goal planning in order to fulfill the company's mission. Right? Values thus create a common ground and understanding between those involved. So if management is solely based on quantitative goals, companies risk dissatisfaction from the consumers and the loss of voluntary internal self-commitment as well as the willingness to take risk and willingness to innovate on the part of the employees that companies urgently need. Okay? So it is not possible in Germany for a company to be exclusively oriented towards the principle of shared value. The interest of other stakeholders such as employees must also be taken into account. That is an example. And this is considered to be a de jure value. De jure value. Here, de jure value. In Germany, it is considered as de jure value. In other words, it is a value that abides by Germany law. Right? Okay. So, the model distinguishes between material, social and spiritual sides of the human being. So, this is the model, triad leadership ethos model, according to Carl Breckel. So, organization responsible, loyal and critical, leadership just, equal and fair, performance competent, effective and efficient, and relationship is credible, caring and truthful. So, the model distinguishes between material, social and spiritual sides of the human being. In relation to a company or an organization, the material side refers to what the organization represents, such as products, process, and services. The social side includes all relationships among members as well as with the outside world that are reflected in communication, cooperation, or customer orientation. So the spiritual side refers to organization's global line of approach. The spiritual side refers to an organization global line of approach, its purpose and reason for existence, right? Reasons for existence. It manifests itself in organization's guiding ideas, principles and structures. So relationship between people should be caring. So relationship between people should be caring and truthful. So relationship between people should be caring and truthful, and its performance should be competent as well as efficient and effective. So understood in this way, the goal of good leadership is to act justly within this field to tension among values. Summary. So it is difficult to make a value judgment with regard to leadership. Many theoretical models have been developed over the past 50 to 100 years. Some of these models have undergone a variety of empirical tests. The transformational leadership approach, while others are difficult to test empirically due to their conceptual complexity, still, even empirical testing does not always yield the clear finding desired in practice. For example, the transformational leadership approach has been shown to be quite effective for certain variables, though studies of the transactional approach have found even greater effects. The topical leadership is alive, it is dynamic, new approaches are emerging, and ultimately leadership is always contextual. It depends on the personality and experience of a leader, the maturity of individual employees, the composition of the workforce, the values structure of a company, and its incentive systems. In this respect, it is extremely difficult to derive generally applicable principles for good leadership. What are the principles of good leadership? It is difficult to derive. Rather, empirical studies allow for making limited, comparative, correlative statement. Constructions like the bigger X is the better Y. The bigger the X is, the better Y is. The theoretical works also provide normative principles on how leadership should be designated responsibly and ethically. So, you need two ends, right? So, you need two ends. Okay? Bye bye.